On Sunday, February 19th, there's an anti-war protest scheduled in Washington, D.C. It's a unique one that includes people from the left, middle, and right of the political spectrum, from the Libertarian Party to antiwar.com and more. Diane Sare is an independent candidate for the U.S. Senate from New York for 2024. In a recent exchange with New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who holds the seat that she seeks, Sare challenged the Democratic incumbent over what she called her vote, along with the vote of New York Senator Chuck Schumer, to, quote, send billions of dollars to a Nazi-infested regime in Ukraine, closed quote. We spoke with her via Skype this past Friday. Talk to us about the 19th. Why is it important?
Well, thank you. As we're making this, I'm sure many of your listeners, as am I, are extremely disappointed that Scott Ritter, who is, I think, arguably the most expert weapons analyst, at least most truthful for sure, and insightful in terms of what's happening with Russia, what's happening on the ground, will not be speaking at the rally. And I say this not to discourage people, but to encourage people to be there. Right. He posted something called Taking One for the Team, because he knows, because of the power of what he represents, not because of stupid FBI sting operations against him. Right. He became the lightning rod for those agents who want this movement to fail. Right. And I would say we wouldn't be on the brink of thermonuclear war if we did not have FBI, CIA, creepy crawly, and just otherwise low-level corruption. Yeah. So admired in virtually every movement and every organization. And in a sense, I love this rally because it's allowing people to see what the problem has been all along. And frankly, that's because of the courage of the two conveners, Nick Brana, the chair of the People's Party, and Angela McArdle, who has taken an enormous amount of heat for her open-mindedness and insistence on this question of unity. And she is the chair of the Libertarian National Committee, and is getting a lot of blowback even from various factions within the Libertarian Party. So because the two of them, and I think it does make a difference that they're both younger, have had the courage to weather the storm, so to speak, and say that nuclear war is the issue, not any of these other things. Right. This could very well come off, and I think everyone should do everything they can to make it a success. I think one of the benefits, like you mentioned here, is we're getting a chance to see basically and hear every possible argument that can be dug up against unity in the face of an existential threat to humanity. And they're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at it. And so we get to see it in all its glory, and then we still know what is to be done. And so that's where we are. Right. And it is a little bit, see, the problem they have now, especially after what they did to Donald Trump, because this, I worked with Lyndon LaRouche for 35 years. Right. You can't imagine how many meetings and events I was involved in organizing where at the we're so sorry, we're going to have to ask you not to speak. Oh, we just found out, blah, blah, blah. Trying to find a lawyer. Oh, no, my law firm has a conflict of interest. Because what was LaRouche? Why was he that threat? Because he was fighting to organize an entirely new system of economic arrangements among sovereign nation states that would allow every nation on the planet the right to basic economic development. Right. And he was a pariah for that. Absolutely. And so people said, well, and then you'd hear this all the time, well, where there's smoke, there must be fire. I mean, you can't say he's really innocent. I mean, they would have, well, then they did what they did to Donald Trump. So at least half of the American voters got an education. That's right. Oh, now we understand what they did to LaRouche, because they're saying all this crazy stuff. I don't agree with everything Trump did, but if I were to criticize Trump, I would criticize him on policy. Right. Not all this, and what was done was so unfair in attempting to impeach him over and over and over again. And remember what they did impeach him for, which is very funny. People should remember, threatening to cut off weapons to Ukraine.
That's right. That's right. And as you'll recall, after he met with President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, the call to impeach him rose actually to try him for treason.
Right.
Rose on the editorial pages of the New York Times, even in the New York Times book review, where they had a book that called for him to be assassinated.
Right, exactly. That I thought was a crime to call for the assassination of a head of state, no matter who it was.
Yep. I remember that. It was in 1963, 1964. It was like a big deal that you can't do that anymore because they killed Kennedy.
Right. No, exactly. So this whole process is pulling the wool off of people's eye. And I will tell you, it's very funny to me. So I, of course, am another kind of lightning rod in this, and I'm attacked as being a racist and cult. What I read is Diane Sare is high up in the LaRouche cult. Okay. Tulsi Gabbard she is in a cult. Ron Paul is a racist. Jimmy Dore makes people sign unjust disclosure, anti-disclosure things. Jackson Hinkle is something or other, MAGA communist. Literally, they have attacked now half of the speakers.
Yep.
So everyone is beginning to say, well,
look what they did to Dennis Kucinich. Look what they did to Cynthia McKinney. Look
right.
what they do to any voice that pokes their head up and speaks out clearly against this madness.
Right. And you have a younger generation that's not as fearful. The organizers, I was not born when Kennedy was assassinated, so that is not in my memory, and I was only 2 when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I only found out years after I was married and had left the home that my father was in the civil rights movement and was doing sit-ins at lunch counters and freedom rides. I had it wasn't even discussed. So the generation that was graduating from college, that lived through those horrible years as young adults of the both Kennedys assassinated, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King,
Fred Hampton, Black Panthers, etc.
And what everyone knew was a terrible cover-up, and witnesses kept getting killed somehow. I think this created an incredible fear.
Yeah.
And so and I don't think it's conscious. And I think, therefore, if the organizers of this march had been in the baby boomer generation, they might have backed down, but they haven't been subjected to that kind of terror. And they therefore are saying, what we're really terrified of is thermonuclear war. Mm-hmm. And we are not afraid to associate with someone who may have been smeared or not be smeared. Maybe the person's just crazy, but they have a following and they're willing to stand against war. Okay, we'll take it. Because we have to have a voice. There is no one. I found this in the campaign. As you know, I was excluded from the debate. Right. After getting 66,000 signatures, they wouldn't let me in the debate because I would have brought this up.
Yep. They did that to Coley Clark, too, by the way. I remember when she ran. So, look, one point that people have to understand is that no matter what the issues are that divide us, and no matter how substantive they are, if you are a radioactive wisp of steam, they are moot. They mean nothing. And that's what we're facing at this point. What would you say to people to get them to pay attention to what's going to happen on the 19th?
Well, they should visit the website, rageagainstwar.com, Rage Against the War Machine. And I really hope that I see everybody there.
Diane Sare, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.